This Wednesday, Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu are expected to meet in Washington to discuss Iran. It'll be their 7th meeting, and it'll come just one day after the 4-month anniversary of the so-called ceasefire in Gaza that Trump helped broker. Now, according to the Gaza Health Ministry, the Israeli military has killed more than 500 people during a period when strikes were supposed to be halted. Dozens were killed last week alone, including children and infants. The images of strikes bringing rubble to the ground look pretty much the same as it was during the war, which makes it clear that there was never really a true ceasefire in place. And in the occupied West Bank, the former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert is now accusing settlers, including some backed by the Israeli government, of carrying out what he calls ethnic cleansing while security forces deliberately stand aside. Let's see if Trump brings any of this up with Netanyahu. Joining us now is Bobby Ghosh, geopolitics analyst and former foreign correspondent at Time Magazine. Bobby, it's good to see you. Thank you for making time for us this evening. So there's a lot to unpack here, and obviously perhaps the biggest focus is on potential operations or military operations against Iran. Do you expect that, Donald Trump will be swayed by what Benjamin Netanyahu may be encouraging him to do, which is to carry out regime change operations in Iran?
Well, Trump's instincts are to go for a deal. And if the Iranians offer a deal, and if he can portray that as a deal that is better than any deal ever made before, it doesn't have to be true, as long as he can claim it, I think that's what his instincts are and have always been. I don't think he wants to get involved in another war in the Middle East. His base doesn't support that. There's plenty of polling to show that. However, balanced against that is Trump's tendency to go with whatever the last person he spoke to happened to tell him at that moment. And so he does have a long-standing relationship with Bibi Netanyahu. Netanyahu has demonstrated over the years that he has the ability to talk American presidents, especially this one, but not only this one, into doing what he thinks is best for him and for Israel. So I wouldn't bet on Trump just saying, yeah, you could say what you like, Bibi, but I'm going to make this deal with the Iranians, whatever. And especially since the Iranians themselves don't seem open to making the kind of deal that Trump wants. Right now, you have a situation where Trump wants a deal. The Iranians are playing footsie with that idea, but are not offering an actual deal. And Bibi Netanyahu is coming to Washington to say, whatever you have in mind right now, that's not enough. You can do better. You can get more from the Iranians than is currently on the table.
Bobby, I want to turn back to Gaza for a moment. As Ayman just spelled out there, hundreds of Palestinians killed in spite of the fact that we're allegedly in the middle of a ceasefire. And we know that Trump's Board of Peace is set to meet next week for the first time to discuss reconstruction. Do you think that violence, those deaths, are going to be brought up, or is the focus going to be on something else?
Well, I doubt very much the violence will come up. I think if Netanyahu has the opportunity to raise the topic, he will point out that Hamas continues to exist. Hamas continues to kill or shoot at Iranian soldiers. He will point out that 4 Iranian soldiers have died in that same time. Now, the balance doesn't seem quite right. You have 4 Iranian soldiers on one side, 555 or 556 Palestinians, mostly civilians, women, children, dead on the other side. But that is what Netanyahu will be talking about. As far as that Board of Peace is concerned, it's been really a showcase of how Trump views deal-making rather than an actual act of diplomacy. I'm very skeptical that anything will come of it. I think you will have a photo op, you will have people posing for the cameras with Trump front and center, and beyond that, not very much. Remember that the deal that was struck in October still remains, large parts of that deal still remain up in air. There is no peace or peacemaking force on the ground in Gaza. There is no real timeline for any of the 20 points that were supposedly agreed to in October, when those points sort of come into action. There is a great deal that still needs to be done about that one deal. So to look past all of that and now talk about this board of peace, it doesn't make a great deal of sense. It seems to me like an attempt to take attention away from where it really should be, which is that in the middle of this winter, you have young people, women, elderly people, sick people in Gaza not getting the aid, the shelter, and the medication they need.
Bobby, can I ask you kind of a dumb question about the negotiations with Iran? What is the strategy behind reopening these uranium talks now? Is the idea to make clear that the Trump administration thinks that the Iranian regime will persist, will continue? The timing just seems very odd. And you are the expert, I am not on these issues. But why send Witkoff and Kushner to these talks now? And also, where is Marco Rubio in all of this?
Well, Marco Rubio says that the deal should be much bigger. Marco Rubio's talking points are very similar to Bibi Netanyahu's. But Trump seems, and he said, I think yesterday or the day before, that he would settle just for a nuclear deal. Now, let's remind ourselves that we had a nuclear deal. The Obama administration had a nuclear deal. Not the best deal in the world, I would argue, but there was a deal that was made in 2015, 11 years ago. And the deal was broken by Donald Trump. Now he's talking about going back essentially to that same deal. This is the same president who only a few months ago was telling us that the Iranian nuclear program has been, and his words were, obliterated. If they're obliterated, what are we talking about? What is the deal about? So one of two things has to be true. Either the nuclear program has not been obliterated, and there is real reason to be concerned that the program could be started up, or this is all a gigantic bluff and a distraction from the main event, whatever that main event happens to be.
Bobby, I got to ask you a little bit more broadly, as somebody who travels abroad frequently and somebody who's fully aware of the kind of reputational damage that America has sustained under Donald Trump. You know, you had the Vice President, J.D. Vance. He was in Milan for the opening ceremonies of the Olympics. He was booed. The Israeli team, when they came out in the opening ceremonies, they were booed as well. And, you know, there seems to be a lot of growing discontent with the United States, even in, broadly speaking, in Europe, over what is happening, not just in Gaza or what has happened in Gaza, but America's positions on Greenland, just some other broader issues, including Ukraine. Just how long do you think it will take, and what will it take, for both the United States and Israel to try and repair, if they can, their reputational damage as a result of the past 2 years?
Well, with the U.S., the damage is greater only because if you have to remember the mountain from which we have fallen. The United States had a lock on soft power all over the world. Wherever Americans went, or most of the places Americans went, certainly where American leaders went, they were treated with respect, often with warmth. There were some places where they were treated with hostility, but those were typically places that were run by totalitarian states, totalitarian dictatorships, so bad guys. Here you have an American vice president, somebody very, very close to the president, someone very closely identified with the president's ideology, going to a friendly country. Italy is not only a European ally of the United States, it is run by a right-wing government. The president, the party running Italy right now, Prime Minister Meloni, is someone whom Donald Trump likes, someone who seems to like him. This should be a place where an American vice president is greeted with cheers. So the fact that he's being jeered in Italy is especially damning, and it tells you how much we have lost of that American soft power that took generations to build. Who knows how long it'll take to fix that? There are very few examples in the world of a country falling down that mountain and being able to climb back up. This is what we are seeing now is completely new, completely unprecedented, and I don't have an honest answer as to how long it will take to fix this.
Bobby Ghosh, thanks so much for your thoughtful, if somewhat depressing, comments this evening.